Hello and welcome to Tetris Football. I'm George and today I'll be doing my League 2 predictions. Let's get into it. Okay, so first up and in 24th place is Grimsby Town, and their manager Paul Hurst, he's been linked with the club before and he's got decent experience, and last season their top scorer John McAtee, he has stayed at the club, so that should help them, but overall I don't believe their squad is good enough to really even attempt to stay up, and I think they'll go straight back down to the National League in 24th place. Alright, and 23rd place for me next season will be Hartlepool, and their manager Paul Hartley, he's only ever managed in the Scottish League, and last season they came 17th, and I think this season it will get a lot worse. And for me, they've got no standout players apart from Nicky Featherstone, but I don't think that will be enough to keep them up, and most of their players from the Scottish League, and I'm not sure they've got the quality to keep them in the league. Okay, and the next team for me that's going to get relegated in 22nd is Rochdale, and their manager Robbie Stockdale, it's his first ever management role, and because of last season's 18th, I think they're only going to get worse because of that. And then playmaker Corey O'Keefe, he has left the club, and I think that will impact them badly, as well as the fact they have not done much transfer business this window. Okay, so for me, in 21st place, and the final team to be relegated is Stockport, and this is because their manager, Dave Challinor, he doesn't have any experience at this level. Although, good for them, they've kept Paddy Madden at the club, and he's shown to be a real good player and got a goal and assist already, first game of the season. And I think overall that should mean that it'll go down to like the last few weeks of the season they get relegated. But overall, I don't think they've got enough, especially with their lack of transfer business, to stay in the league. Okay, and the first team to escape relegation for me in League 2 will be Stevenage, and their manager Steve Evans, he's got experience, so that's good. It will help them stay up and I think avoid the drop. And they've also got Luke Norris, who is a class player, as well as the fact that in this transfer window they have improved their defence, which should solidify that ship and stop them from going down. Right, next up, and in 19th place, this could be a controversial one, but I've put Newport County, and personally I believe this is because they've lost Dominic Telford, who was an absolute class player last season. And they also lost Oliver Cooper, who was their top assister, who's gone back to Swansea after his loan, and for me they've done no exciting business to replace them, so I'm predicting a massive drop-off into 19th after their 11th place finish last season. Okay, so next up, and for me in 18th place, is Leyton Orient, and despite having the manager Richie Wellens, who has experience at this level, and also having goal scorers Aaron Drinan and Harry Smith, who both got 13 goals each last season, I don't think they've done enough in the transfer market to keep up the level they did last season. They'll have a bit of a drop-off, with their main approach to the transfer window is just to promote players from their youth teams, and I'm not sure they'll be quite good enough to keep up the level they got last season and drop off a bit from their mid-table finish. Okay, so 17th place for me, my prediction is Carlisle, and I believe that they'll do better from last season's 20th with Paul Simpson as the manager. He's got experience at this level and he's been at the club before and he knows the workings of the club. They kept their top contributors, Amari Patrick and Jordan Gibson, which is very good business from them. And they also brought in Czech goalkeeper Thomas Holy, who I think will be a very good keeper, as well as keeping most of their squad the same, which I believe should enable them to improve on top of their last season's 20th place finish and move up to 17th. Okay, next up in 16th place is Barrow. We have a massive improvement from their last season's poor finish. I believe that Phil Brown is a good manager. He's got good experience and he's also the manager that years ago got Hull promoted to the Prem, so he's pretty well experienced. However, they have lost their top scorer Ollie Banks, but they have replaced him with Billy Waters, who has already scored on his debut and I think will be a class signing. They've got a solid midfield in with the signing of Sam Foley from Tranmere. I think will solidify that midfield and help them win games in the middle of the park. So next up, my 15th place prediction is Tranmere Rovers, and their manager Mickey Mellon. He is experienced, although I do think this will be a big drop off from last season's 9th place. They've got no standout player and they've lost a lot of squad depth in the transfer market. But they do have Ross Dohan, a decent keeper from Celtic, and I think that's enough to give them a solid finish in 15th place. Okay, so my 14th place prediction for the Championship next season will be Colchester, and I believe their manager, Wayne Brown, should do a decent job. And it's a slight improvement from last season's 15th, and I think this because he's been around Colchester since 2013, so he knows how the club works. And they've also kept Freddie Sears, an absolute baller. He got 20 contributions last year, and I'm predicting him to do something somewhat similar, especially with the fact they kept a similar squad, so they should all know how each other play, and they'll believe in the manager's tactics, and they should be able to finish 14th. Okay, and 13th place for me in League 2 next season will be Doncaster Rovers, and their manager, Gary McSheffrey. He doesn't have much experience at this level, and despite last season being relegated, which means they should have a League 1 sort of standard squad, I don't believe they will be doing that well next season, as to me they don't have any standout players, and they did lose Ben Blythe, who I think is a promising centre-back, and I think that will affect the morale of the squad and stop them from having a chance of going back up next season. Okay, and next up in 12th is another one of the relegated teams, Gillingham, and their manager, Neil Harris. He's got a lot of experience at this level, which I like, and they were only just relegated in the end last season, but they did lose Vardane Oliver, who was their top contributor, and I think that might hurt their chances of going back up, especially with the fact they've got a whole new squad, so they'll need time to gel and learn how to play together. Okay, next up, and just creeping into the top half of the table, for me in 11th is Bradford City, and their manager Mark Hughes, who was a great player, which should inspire his players as they'll look at his playing career and feel the need to impress him and do really well. And he also has a good experience at this level as a manager, and last season's 14th, I think they will improve, because despite the fact they've kept their top scorer Andy Cook, and despite the fact they've lost their top assister Callum Cook, they've replaced him really well with Richard Smallwood from Hull, who had a decent season for Hull and even captain at the time, so he should be a real good player and boost Bradford's season. Next up for me in 10th is Crewe Alexandra, and this might be shocking compared to where I put the other relegated teams, as I've put them lower down, but I just feel like personally they'll have a just decent season, because I mean, David Artell, it's his first job, but I have a feeling he'll do well, and they even lost Chris Porter, but I just genuinely believe that Crewe Alexandra, they won't be as badly affected by the relegation. Next up for me in 9th is Sutton United, and their manager, Matt Gray, it is his first gig, but he has been at the club since 2019, so he knows his players and he knows his tactics and he knows what he needs to do. And despite last season's 8th, I think they will drop off slightly because they lost their goalkeeper, Dean Bacasnes, can't really say his name, from Australia. But they have kept Robert Milson, who is a great midfielder and was probably their best player last season, and that's why I think they will keep a similar position in 9th this year round. Next up for me in 8th is probably the most well-known team in League 2 due to the Class of 22 Man United's project going on with the club, and that is Salford City. And their manager, Neil Wood, I think he's quite inexperienced. He doesn't really know the workings of the club either, but they did finish 10th last season, and they do have Brandon Thomas Asante, who is a great forward, and they signed Callum Hendry, who has already scored, and I think those players will be able to boost them, get a bit further than 10th and get up into 8th. Okay, so my 7th place prediction, and just missing out on the playoffs, is Swindon, and their manager Scott Lindsay, he doesn't have much experience, which is why I'm predicting a slight drop off from 6th into 7th. And they also lost Jack Payne, who is a brilliant contributor for them last season, but they do still have Harry McCurdy, who is a very good striker. But losing Jack Payne, I think, will cost them at least a place and move them down into 7th, which is just missing out on the playoffs, unfortunately, for Swindon. Okay, next up, and the first team to get into the playoffs for me, is Crawley Town. And personally, I like the project they've got going at the club. They also are one of the closest teams to me, being Sussex-based, just like Brighton, one of the only 2 teams to be in top-class football from Sussex, which is very good. And I do like the project they've got going on. They did finish 12th last season, but I'm predicting them to do a lot better, because they didn't score many goals last season, but they brought in Dom Telford, who is one of the best players last season, so I think that will boost them a lot. And they've also brought in quite a few loanees from the Premier League, which should boost their squad, especially because the manager, Kevin Betsy, he's good with the youth. He should help those players grow, develop and perform well for the club and get them into the playoffs. Okay, next up in 5th place is one of the relegated teams from League One last season in 23rd. Surprising that they're going to be doing this well next season, but I do believe they will finish 5th. The manager, Johnny Jackson, he's done a very good job at Charlton before, and they were only just relegated in the end last season, so I think they've got a good enough squad to do well this season. Especially last season, they started really well. They showed they could do it in League One. They've still got pretty much that squad, and yeah, they finished the season poorly, which hurt them a lot. Although they did lose their top scorer, Jack Rudoni, to Huddersfield, which makes me believe that they won't do well enough to get an automatic promotion. Okay, so next up in 4th place, quite a shocking prediction I believe, but this club has a project I genuinely believe in, Harrogate Town. Their manager, Simon Weaver, he's been there since 2009. He got them up from the Conference League North, which is like the 6th division, up to this 4th tier now, and I think they might be the team to go up through the playoffs, as they've got a very, very good project going on. Their strikers, Luke Armstrong, Jack Muldoon, they've got a great connection there and scoring loads of goals for the clubs, and I think they've got just a good balanced squad that should easily get them into the playoffs and maybe even up through the playoffs. Okay, so 3rd place for me and the club to just miss out on an automatic promotion is Mansfield, and their manager, Nigel Clough, he is very experienced, a good manager, and I'm expecting them to improve a lot on last season's 7th. They've got a very good balanced squad, and adding Hiram Boateng in midfield is a quality signing. And they also brought in Will Swan from Nottingham Forest, who is a good young striker, and I think he scored for them already, which is very, very good and looks like a promising talent that could easily get them promoted for next season. Okay, next up in 2nd place, first team to get an automatic promotion for me is Walsall, and this can be quite controversial due to last place's 16th place finish, but I think there's a very exciting project going on in the club, bringing in Michael Flint as manager. He's done very good with Newport in the past, and while he was there, he was challenging Premier League teams in the Cup all the time. So I think he should be a very good manager, and their new forward that they've brought in, Danny Johnson, he's already got a hat-trick on his debut, and I think he'll keep up those very good performances and get them into 2nd place and automatic promotion to League One. Okay, and the last team in this video, and the team that I believe will win League 2 next season, is Northampton. Their manager, John Brady, he's been the first team manager for since 2021, but he's been at the club with the under-16s and under-18s since 2016, and last season they missed out on promotion in the playoffs after finishing 4th, but I think they'll improve on that this year and win the league, especially with teams that came before them obviously going up next season. I also believe they've got a really good centre-back in John Guthrie, and bringing in Tyler McGlaw to partner him is very good business from Blackburn, and I do believe that they'll have a good season, especially with wingers Hoskins and Pinnock, who are both brilliantly. Hoskins already scored 2 goals this season in the first game and a 3-2 win, and I think they'll keep up those good levels all season and end up winning the league to get promoted to League One and maybe even further in the future. So I believe there's a very good project going on at that club.